Coming up on the Get Lean, Eat Clean podcast.
The more you're consistent and the more years you have on the belt, you start to figure out and dial in the things that really work for you. And those things are slightly different than those that work for me. And I'm going to say in a couple categories, you're going to find the type of training your body really responds to and you actually enjoy. So that's great. And understanding that also might change with seasons. Like when it's cold outside, you might be doing different exercise than when you do in the summer. And so you start to find your rhythm and flow. And that's what life is. It's about going with these rhythms and flows. The second thing is you're going to find those go-to foods that make your body feel fantastic. And the more I talk to people who are like you and me, Brian, who like have been deep in this game and teach people and work this on a very deep level, is we end up gravitating not from a restrictive standpoint, but to a certain subset of foods that we know are like the really nourishing foods that work well for our bodies. And we build our nutrition plans around those foods. Not to say some free meals and other stuff doesn't get slotted in there. It does. That's part of the dance. But I know you can refine what works for you. And people who are less consistent, they have more variety and less clarity.
This week, I interviewed Dr. Anthony Balduzzi. Dr. Anthony is the founder of Fit Father Project, has helped millions of men lose weight, double their energy, create rock-solid habits, and build age-defying muscle and strength. We discussed Dr. Anthony's nutrition principles, the importance of mindset when it comes to losing weight, Dr. Anthony's morning and evening routine, what to eat for that first meal of the day, how to lose visceral fat around your waist, and much, much more. Really enjoyed my interview with Dr. Anthony. I know you will too. Thanks so much for listening and enjoy the show. All right, welcome to the Get Lean, Eat Clean podcast. My name is Brian Gryn, and I have Dr. Anthony Balduzzi on. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here this morning.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on. Fathering you. I've been following you for quite a while, and I think right when I was about to say that. So you own Fit Father Project, right?
Yeah.
Mission to help men over 40 with health and wellness, and we're in the same niche, so I'm excited to have this conversation.
Yeah, me too. I have a deep passion for men's health and fitness, and I suppose this is a nice launching off point for me to share a little bit like how I got into that work. I honestly, it came from tragedy. Growing up, I watched my own dad bust his butt to provide for our family. And like many guys, his health routines got put in the back burner. He didn't always eat the healthiest. He had a lot of stress. He missed workouts. And one night he fell out of bed and had a violent seizure. And we took him to the hospital. And that night he got a terminal brain cancer diagnosis. And he died several years later after chemotherapy, radiation, surgery. But I basically saw like my superhero, my dad, his health deteriorate, and he passed away when he was just 42 years old. And so that was right before my 10th birthday. So I was 9 at the time. And it really rocked my world. It gave me a sense and appreciation for health at a very young age that I don't think people typically get until the mid part of life. And it did kind of flip a switch in my mind and in my heart that I wanted to figure out this health and fitness stuff. I'm kind of on a primal level. I felt like to heal myself and to step up and become, the man of the house. But also I had this idea that if I could get so strong and healthy, cancer wouldn't affect me. And as I began to invest in my health and fitness routines, I would train at night with these dumbbells I'd keep under my bed. I started to learn about healthier foods. I started to feel better. And I was like, this is amazing. Like my life was crumbling maybe like a year ago. And now as I've been consciously investing in healthier food and movement, like I'm healing on many deep levels, like physically stronger for sure, but I have more mental clarity and sharpness and motivation. And I see purpose in my life. And that's the initial soil that sprouted over time and time to become what the Fit Father Project is today. And then the Fit Mother Project came after that. And I just have a passion for people like my dad, middle-aged guys juggling everything, they want to do better, but it's hard to practically make all this stuff work. And the stakes are higher when we're midlife. We have this crossroads where we could have a beautiful back half of life with energy, our wisdom years, or what most people are experiencing today, which is like debility, worsening health. It's just terrible. And so I help people establish the lifestyle to walk that path, the healthy path.
Yeah, I agree. It is it's sort of a great niche to be in. Like you said, I think, you're in your 40s, even 50s. There's still a lot of time left, right? Like even if you haven't implemented healthy habits from that point before that, like it's never too late, right? And what kind of like foundations of health would you say that you focus on with a lot of clients to sort of help them get going down that path?
Well, I'd say I'm kind of like a systems thinker. I think that we need to establish systems to counteract the busyness and all the information barrage. And we need systems around our nutrition. We need
Mhm.
systems around our movement. We need systems around our sleep and recovery. And so I help people build systems in those pillars. And I do feel like we can also start to approach it from which systems are the highest leverage. And nutrition certainly is the highest leverage system. It's going to be argued for sleep and recovery too, from a hormonal perspective, but I like to zone in with nutrition. And a lot of people struggle because they feel like they need to go out and exercise and work out more. They feel guilt about that, but they're eating foods that are dysregulating their blood sugar, creating inflammation, setting them up into reactive habit patterns. So I really help people dial in meal timing schedule setup, like what works for you on what days, figuring out healthy go-to foods, and practicing getting into a good routine with that. Because I do feel like that healthy eating plan is like this kind of structure and scaffolding that everything can kind of build around. Because when you're over 40, the converse is absolutely not true. You cannot out exercise poor nutrition. You can try to go train for a couple hours, but you're eating inflammatory foods that are messing your gut up and killing your energy. It's just not going to work. So, and the cool thing is as we get older and our recovery capacity from exercise goes down, good nutrition paired with like a couple pulses of training a week is enough of a signal to create a really healthy, strong, and fit body. So I'd say nutrition is where we start. But baked into nutrition, it's not just like the nutritional science. It's like the art of nutrition, which inherently involves your motivation, your belief structures, your environment, your habits, behavioral psychology. And this is where nutrition and mindset become these like two sides of this coin that leads to consistency. So we spend a lot of time with our clients helping them create better neuroassociations, get deeper into understanding the psychology of what's driving their motivation to be healthy, and honestly getting in touch with that on a regular basis. Because if we currently have deficits in nutrition, meaning we have bad habits and patterns, we're not consistent, it is because we have some kind of belief structure or habit pattern, a neuro pattern, if you will, that is not serving us, and we need to rewire that. So it's a deep process. It really is.
Yeah, and I think the one difficulty, like you said, is this individual's as opposed to working with someone in their 20s where they haven't been haven't had life as long and maybe haven't developed some bad habits for a while,
Mhm.
obviously. But bad habits can be tough to break, like you said.
Yes.
It can become just sort of this neuro association that, like, I had a client one time who kept referring in a joking pattern that he was a fat guy, like, but
Yep.
just like, so he associated himself as that.
Yes.
And like, you sort of have to get over that, obviously, initially, which can't be is not always that easy right away.
Those identity shifts are necessary to happen over the long haul to be successful. I'm talking in like a 2, 3, 5, 10-year time frame. That has to change, because what you do see happen is people follow a plan that's very effective. Maybe they get on a very low carbohydrate diet, they start doing some fasting, they work with a trainer. You can lose 100 pounds in a year, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you've shifted this deep belief structure. Like, a lot of those people, even down 100 pounds, still feel like they have that inner fat man or fat woman inside, and they perceive themselves in that way. And
Mm.
so there are processes that you can do to help to repattern and rework those identity structures. And that's really key for sustainability. And ultimately, what is health about other than sustainability? It's not like you win the game of health. It's not like a one thing. It's like we want to show up and continuously invest 5 years from now, 10 years from now. So it's all about the sustainable lens, in my opinion.
I agree, and you talk about it in your YouTube videos. You have a great channel, but you've talked about like consistency and the
Hmm.
importance of that. I mean, I think people ask me, like, I mean, I'm 44, like, I feel like I'm probably in some of the best shape of my life,
Hmm.
and I just think it's just been being consistent over a long period of time is like the biggest thing. It just, like you said, showing up.
Yes. And I'll say too, and I think you can probably reflect this is true in your life, the more you're consistent and the more years you have on the belt, you start to figure out and dial in the things that really work for you. And those things are slightly different than those that work for me. And I'm going to say in a couple categories, you're going to find the type of training your body really responds to and you actually enjoy. So that's great. And understanding that also might change with seasons. Like when it's cold outside, you might be doing different exercise than when you do in the summer. And so you start to find your rhythm and flow. And that's what life is. It's about going with these rhythms and flows. The second thing is you're going to find those go-to foods that make your body feel fantastic. And the more I talk to people who are like you and me, Brian, who like have been deep in this game and teach people and work this on a very deep level, is we end up gravitating not from a restrictive standpoint, but to a certain subset of foods that we know are like the really nourishing foods that work well for our bodies. And we build our nutrition plans around those foods. Not to say some free meals and other stuff doesn't get slotted in there. It does. That's part of the dance. But I know you can refine what works for you. And people who are less consistent, they have more variety and less clarity. Like for me, I know like today and like where my body's at right now and like what I know to be true, I know I feel fantastic when I'm eating a lot of high quality eggs, when I'm eating avocado, extra virgin olive oil, walnuts, hemp seeds, you know, cold water fatty fish. And I've had enough consistency over time to deviate from different types of foods and see how my body responds and get that kind of feedback and connection that it helps me stay more consistent for a couple of reasons. One, I just have the clarity, but two, I've had enough rounds of feedback to know, oh, I do different things, I feel worse. And what we all want to do, it feels like, you know, sugar tastes great, but feeling fantastic is a much richer experience.
Yeah. And I think on another note, like, you know how it feels to like eat a crappy food and not feel good.
Yes,
Like, I think when you get to the point where like you avoid foods because you know that you're not going to feel right, I think that's it. That's getting to a good point in your,
that's it.
yeah, right.
You nailed it. You
Yeah.
nailed it. That's it. Because
Yeah.
then you're being yeah, you're not now I'd say you're being pulled towards your center of goodness versus like being pushed to the good place. Maybe I didn't say that exactly right. But point being is like when you know you're not eating something, you're like, I know this wrecks my gut, creates inflammation. It's just not worth it. For me, like something like pizza, like I'm an Italian dude, like it tastes so good, but I just don't eat it because it destroys me. And the cool thing is it doesn't destroy everybody.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
there are some people that can eat those foods and be okay. And that's great to know. Like what's your wheelhouse of stuff you can get away with?
Yeah. Yeah. Like I'm sort of the same way. Like pizza, don't have it a lot at all. But like if I do, I don't necessarily feel great. But again, having a cheat meal every once in a while and then bouncing right back to your normal routine, I think there's nothing wrong with that.
Me too. And we
Yeah.
build that into our programming philosophy. And I like to
Yeah.
call them free meals instead of cheat meals.
Right.
Subtle language difference, but I think language does encapsulate our relationship to something. Cheat would mean you're doing something bad and it has like a kind of guilty or punitive aspect
Mhm.
to it. Free means we're releasing the framework of what is optimal for us in this moment. And then again, you're proactive with it. You plan it typically on a Friday or Saturday night when you're going out with family or friends or when it fits the social calendar. And then you have a protocol for getting back on track the next day. Maybe you fast, you know, for a couple hours. Maybe you increase your hydration or have some coffee to get that bowel movement. Like whatever your protocol is, it's all part of the dance. It's no longer like this erratic, well, I'm all over the place, I'm on the plan, off the plan. It's just like a little more flowing and you have tools to deploy. Because I think health long term is about managing momentum too. It's like it's okay if you didn't exercise and you missed all of your workouts for 1 week. That really actually would be okay as long as you can completely turn that momentum around and get back on track. But if that drift becomes 1 month, 3 months, now you're in a rut. So these kind of small tools on how to get back on track. You didn't have the healthiest meal. What's your morning routine? What's your go-to meal one? How do you reset? Like that's a tool. And the most successful people know how to run that play.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. I know you talk systems. You can call them systems or routines.
Mhm.
I'm a big routine guy. And we were talking off air a little bit about your morning routine. Maybe give us a little in depth of what a typical day like is for you.
Yeah, sure. I'll give you like the pared down version of a routine. I'm a lot like you, and I've listened to your podcast on, you may have several on morning routines. First thing that I do is before I'm actually totally awake and alert, meaning my brain wave state has gone from that like dreamy transitional state to more alert and focused, which I mean, if we get a little more scientific, we're moving from these deeper, slower waves like theta and maybe alpha waves in the morning towards beta waves, these active alert waves. I think that's a really special time. It's a special time to take advantage of. So before I get out of a bed, well, I guess I do do to actually get out of bed. But before I turn the lights on in the room, I have a little meditation chair, and I also have a meditation kind of mat. And I'm either laying on the mat or I'm sitting in the chair. And it's like, it could be up 5 minutes, but it could be up to 30 minutes. And I'm just sitting in that space, that really powerful, creative, dreamlike space. And that's a chance to process. It could be a chance to set an intention, but I guess you could call it like a meditation time. And the reason I'm motivated to do that when I struggled to meditate in the past is that I believe that kind of state of consciousness that's not just regular alert, busy, kind of more surface level is significant. Like, it's significant because it could be a source of deeper creativity, a source of subconscious processing. In fact, like, one of the most prolific inventors, Thomas Edison, had a famous practice where he would hold two metal balls in his hands and he would get into a really dreamy state, like he was just about to fall asleep. And as he'd fall asleep, his hands would relax and the balls would drop and wake him up. And then he would write down whatever he was thinking about. This was like his conscious process for taking his brain into a deeper state. So when I realized this in my own life, I'm like, man, I want to take advantage of that on a daily basis and do a little bit of this deep processing. So that could be 5 to 30 minutes. After that, I will get up and I will do some rehydration. So for me, what that looks like is clean water, which in our household is a whole house reverse osmosis, which removes pretty much everything, but then we remineralize. So we get clean water and we put minerals back in. My current thought on minerals is like, any way that you can get minerals are good, but I'm more interested in the micro minerals than the macro minerals. Like right now, everyone's talking about these like element, sodium packs. They have like 1,000 milligrams of sodium, maybe a little bit of magnesium. Like, look, that's good for like athletic aspects, but for optimal health, we want like these micro minerals like boron, lithium, vanadium, and they're found in a lot of great places. Like, a supplement I use is from Beam Minerals, BEAM. They have these fulvic and humic acids. They're liquid mineral supplements. And fulvic and humic acids, if people are not familiar, are basically the decomposition products of plants, like plant leaves that kind of decompose. Plants concentrate minerals from the soil into structure, and then we're able to eat these and we get all our minerals. I think trace mineral drops are also fine. And if you want to be super bare bones and simple with it, even like Celtic sea salt, it has some trace minerals as well with the sodium chloride. But hydration and minerals is what the body needs first thing in the morning. Like, we know from all this experience, personal experience, but also research on fasting, the body can go a long time without food, can maintain blood sugar, can stabilize. And in the morning, we have the benefit of that natural rise in cortisol anyways. That's going to, raise blood sugar naturally, break down some stored glycogen. But what we do need is water and hydration. That's what really gives our cells the ability to, have proper voltage and cellular signaling and energy. So I'm a big proponent of that. I don't always eat in the morning. I'm a little more flexible with that. And I think it depends on if I had a big workout the next day. Am I actually hungry? Do I have a podcast or a recording or a meeting in the morning? And maybe I'll just have, some more liquids in the morning and not have my first full meal. So I'm a little variable on that. Like the weekend with my daughter, we might have an actual like proper breakfast. So that kind of flexes and flows. But I guess I would say that, and one final aspect of my morning routine that I like to do before I put food in my body is I do have a cold plunge. That is outside, and I live in Arizona, so it's sunny. So I'll walk out into the backyard, get some sunshine, and hop in the cold plunge for about 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and then dry off in the sun. So I'm getting that morning sunshine on my skin and my eyes. And I guess because I have a nice setup at my house, that whole process, let's just say the meditation took 10 minutes, the hydration and the preparing of the liquids took 5 minutes, and then the cold plunge with the warming up in the sun took 10 minutes. Like, that's honestly could be as short as 30 minutes. I typically take my time and maybe it's an hour. But that's all that is required in my routine for making me feel fantastic. I think the cold plunge kind of gives you this kind of exercise effect because you get this kind of pumping of the cardiovascular system and the vessels, and then the reheating and the reperfusion. And then being outside in the morning sun is a mood tonic for sure. Your brain makes more serotonin. So I'm looking at, how do I optimize my neurotransmitters? How do I get hydration in my body and then take advantage of that beautiful morning transitional state of consciousness? So that's where I'm at with those kind of three things.
Yeah. Do you typically do your workouts like midday or
I,
afternoon?
I like to do them as like a kind of transition point out of the, either I slot a shorter workout in midday after I've done work for a few hours, or I do them before I have dinner meal so that dinner can come, within 1 to 2 hours after training. So let's just say that the workout might come at 4 p.m. Could be a common time, but I could also do something small in the afternoon. I tend to work out on, like, right now I'm in a very busy season. I have a, daughter and business and a lot of things I'm getting on. So I will do one big full body strength training session during the week, and then another big one on the weekend. And so I'm only getting two full body strength training sessions. And then during the week, it's just more like lighter activities, some cardiovascular stuff, riding a bike, walking, bouncing, and just like lighter stuff. And the cool thing, I can say this, is when you've trained for some time, you eat a healthy diet, you don't need a ton of exercise to have a very muscular and fit body. Pulses of high intensity exercise are what our body responds to well.
Yeah, I talked to Brooks Coleman about a little bit about like NEAT, non-exercise activity
Yeah.
thermogenesis, like doing those little things throughout the day, moving, walking, like
Yes.
you were talking about bouncing. Those over time can make almost just as a big, if not more of impact than a lot of other activities.
For sure. Yeah. It's like, what is the study? They have like the research on people who are naturally fidgeters and they burn like
Mhm.
hundreds of calories extra per day, which could
Right.
be up to thousands per week, and they stay leaner. Yeah.
And yeah, I love that. I mean, I actually have a cold plunge back there. Lucky, I was blessed to have it and have like a perfect room for it. I mean, I'm in
Yes.
Chicago, so it's got to be. I guess I actually have a friend who has one outside, but mine's inside. And I usually typically use the cold plunge on my off days. Actually,
Mm.
I don't pair it around my workouts. Typically
Pre-workout's a good time to explore it. Like, I don't
pre.
know
Do you
when you
say
do
pre?
train. Oh yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
for
I
sure.
I have done that. Yeah, the pre, and you find you have more stamina.
You do. Well,
Yeah.
because you get all these, you get the rush of all the, well, certainly you get adrenaline dump, dopamine gets dumped as well. And if you give your body time to warm up, you get that reperfusion of blood. It can be very good. But as you mentioned, for those who are interested in doing cold exposure, not the best time after exercise because you want your body to have that adaptive
Inflammation.
signaling from training. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's a fun tool. What about evening? Do you have any sort of tips sort of that to help people wind down and improve quality of sleep?
Yeah, for sure. I think like probably the biggest thing that I've learned is optimizing the room itself, like the sleep environment is probably where your best gains are. Changes I've made, blackout curtains, game changer, like having a really, really dark room.
Mhm.
A weighted blanket has been a game changer for me as well, like a really thick, heavy cotton blanket. Like it's breathable, so I'm not too hot. I find that my sleep is, and maybe we can approach this from what makes my sleep the worst. What makes my sleep the worst is when I'm too hot at night or if I've eaten too close to when I go to bed, which also produces a thermic effect of food, and body heat is a big aspect there. So, one, to good sleep, I try not to eat too late. So I'm at least, 3, 4 hours before going to bed, but ideally even longer would be optimal. And that room is cooler. So I do have like these Uller kind of chili pad type things. I don't think they're necessary for people to have, but you got to find a way to get a cool room and a proper blanket setup. I do have that same kind of routine where I'm transitioning out of the day, where I sit in that meditation chair or I lay down on that mat for 5, 10 minutes. That is something I think is so important for just decompressing, processing,
Mhm.
closing down the day. Like that's really essential. And I do occasionally take melatonin. I have it and I am a fan of it, but it's not like it needs to be like an everyday thing. But it's one of those interesting quote unquote hormones, if you will, that you don't get a negative feedback loop. Your body is going to produce melatonin regardless if you take a 1 milligram melatonin tab. The way I kind of modulate if I take that would be one, if I'm feeling like I'm run down, or maybe if there's any kind of immune stuff, or I feel like I'm a little sick. I think we're realizing now melatonin is an important molecule for the immune system and could be helpful for a little boost. Or two, if I was working on the computer just like a ton that day, maybe a little extra support. That's just kind of like my own anecdotal process there. I am huge on maintaining proper light. So all of our screens in our house, even the TVs, that my daughter watches with Apple TV on them, we cut out the blue light almost constantly. And I'm not against blue light during the day, but we just take it off almost all of our screens because we're getting plenty of it anyways. So all of our technology in the house, phones, iPads, TVs, all has, the blue light pretty much cut out of it. And I think that's pretty dang essential for a proper circadian rhythm. And if you want some blue light, like get outside in the sunshine, midday, look at the sky, like that's the right time to get that.
And the blue light from the screens, you're blocking that out with glasses, or yeah.
Modulators on the screens. I mean, if you go to like your iPhone or I have glasses but like if you go to one on my computer here that I have a little software called Flux, I think, or I have a couple different ones that basically just cuts that out like at the screen level. I think it's more of a software programmatic thing. If you have an iPhone, you just go to accessibility, brightness,
Right.
display, and you can kind of reduce all that out. You can even do it on your TVs. All of them have settings to cut out the blue light.
Well,
And at night, I do have blue blocking glasses, and I have the really red, like the really, really red ones. If you get those red ones,
yeah, yeah,
that can really help you sleep. And I do have a pair of those.
yeah, yeah. Those are good tips. And I agree. I mean, I think creating that environment is so important. We have blackout shades, and we keep our room cool, like about 66 degrees.
Perfect.
We tried with using the cooling blanket. Oh my God. Oh, 8 Sleep. We tried that
Yeah.
actually the mattress. Didn't quite work out, but I'm curious with the heavy blanket if you find so it's not too warm.
No, because it's woven, so it like almost stretches and opens. It's been probably the single biggest thing I've done that's helped a ton. So I replaced my comforter with it.
What's the brand on that
Uh,
one?
I can look it up. It starts with a
Okay.
B.
Okay.
Starts with a B.
No problem. As far as nutrition, that first meal of the day, I know you've talked about it on social media a little bit. You talk about standardizing your first meal of the day. What's your advice around that?
Okay. Well, I'll give like advice that I give in the program, and then I'll share with what I'm doing right now personally. And they're similar, but again, I have my own unique flair on what works best for me.
Mm.
I believe that in the morning, there's a couple types of meals that work well for people. From a conceptual standpoint, it's a great time to have a good first bolus of protein. It's a great time to have healthy fats. It's a great time to get in a lot of vitamins and minerals and stuff that like you can just get in to give the body, hey, here's micronutrients, here's macronutrients. It's not a good time to radically spike your blood sugar or eat things that are hard to digest. And which means just things that are just too heavy, require a lot of blood flow in the GI tract, and will slow you down for the day. I think it's a time to feel light and optimized. So the way people accomplish that in our programs is they're doing some kind of eggs plus fruit or eggs plus avocado style recipe. Like that just works easy. Eggs, whatever
Mhm.
way you like, pair it with an avocado. You have like a low carb, kind of meal that's wonderful. You can also pair it with any kind of fresh fruit would be a wonderful option as well. I like eggs, and I mean, for those people, not everyone can tolerate them well, but if you can, dang, are they a superfood? I mean, you have bioavailable protein. The egg yolk itself is so rich in nutrition. It's like a multivitamin, basically, and you can get them anywhere. So it's actually really easy to have a portable routine, whether you're at a hotel or in a different country. Eggs were kind of ubiquitous. So I'm a fan on that.
Yeah.
But like, let's say you are vegan, plant-based, you could totally do some kind of like steel cut oats with hemp seeds, goji berries, cacao nibs, walnuts. Like, yeah, it's higher carb, but that would also be an amazing, beautiful meal. And you mix the fats in there and the proteins, you got something wonderful. I'm also a fan of like breakfast shakes and smoothies, like just standardizing it where you throw a bunch of great stuff in there. You get a clean protein powder you like, whatever kind of milk you like. I'm more on like, and this is also because I'm sensitive to dairy proteins and lactose intolerant. I'm not one of those people that tolerates dairy well. If you tolerate dairy well, like go for it. I'd still probably suggest an organic, maybe A2 casein milk, but I'm more of like a nut milk kind of guy. But I would throw maybe some cacao in there, maybe some spring mix, maybe some hemp seeds, chia seeds, maybe some wild blueberries. Like you just make an awesome shake that, when you get this in, I'm going to be full. It's easy to digest. I got a lot of micronutrients in my body. And what I love about this concept of having a great in-slot breakfast is that the rest of the day, dinner could be like off the rails, but at least this first meal is rock solid and sets you up for good energy and productivity. For me personally, when I have my first meal, it's kind of variable on the day. I am waking up my GI tract with a mono fruit meal. I'm having one type of fruit and I eat it by itself first. And I'll wait like 20, 30 minutes after that before I have anything else.
Hmm.
So in the summer, I'm playing around with melons. They're just available and like they work. Like cantaloupe is something that I'm having quite a bit of, and it feels amazing. Like there's a lot of cool. The fruit is a really great tool for people who are insulin sensitive and have established healthy blood sugar and are training regularly. It's great for a couple reasons. One, you get like a lot of powerful hydration that doesn't just come from liquid. It comes in like this, it comes in almost like a cooler package because the hydration is coming with natural minerals in there. It's coming in this matrix of fiber that your gut bacteria absolutely love. It's very fast digesting. These are quote unquote simple sugars, but that doesn't necessarily mean they'll throw your blood sugar to a tailspin.
Right.
And they'll also give you that early morning bowel movement. And I think that is a good sign of health when your GI tract starts to move early in the morning, and a mono fruit meal could be really good on that. And that changes for me seasonally with what kind of fruit is available. So right now, as I said, I've been doing a good amount of melons, sometimes some coconuts. I'll do more stone fruits like apples and pears. When the wintertime comes, berries are also an option, sometimes a coconut yogurt. So that's what I start. I've been hitting eggs and quite a bit for my first protein source of the day. And I have those raw, believe it or not. It's just
Nice.
something that I've kind of gotten in a habit of doing, cracking 3, 4 of these beautiful eggs with great orange yolks into a glass. And I just kind of shoot those back. And I feel great on those. And I'm not saying anyone should do this. And this is like my personal thing. I've probably had thousands of raw eggs. I've never had any problems with salmonella or any kind of issues with that. So take that for what it's worth. But raw eggs in the morning feel quite good for me. And I am actually getting a good amount of fat and like some flavonoids and other kind of plant compounds through some good cacao. I have like some ceremonial grade dark chocolate cacao, which is truly a health food. Like people don't give it enough credit, but like you get some real organic cacao, ideally that's heavy metal tested. Like that stuff has healthy fat in it. It has compounds that boost your mood like theobromine in it. It has fiber. It's one of the richest sources of magnesium. So I kind of have like a drink that has some more of these like healthy fats in there with the cacao. And that combination of like the eggs and then the fruit and then the cacao with some of those fats is really good. It feels great. I'm getting walnuts in my diet every day. I know that sounds a very specific thing, but I believe that one of the healthiest foods possible. When it comes to nuts, there's a lot of people who talk against, certain plant-based foods for phytic acid or oxalates. Walnuts are like the lowest source of all of those. They're high in omega-3s. They're one of the greatest sources of copper, which is a micro mineral that we don't get enough of. And copper is really implicated in thyroid function, immune function, and a lot of people are deficient because our foods just don't have enough. They're loaded with those. I'm also getting hemp seeds. I'm a fan of trying to get more plant-based proteins into your diet, even if you have an animal-based diet. Like even if you're having steak or chicken or salmon as a part of your diet, if you can get these like best in slot plant-based protein sources in, which I think hemp seeds or hemp hearts are like a wonderful thing to get into your diet at all times, like try to just pour those in. Another food I'm a fan of that I put in all my daughter's food and in mine too is non-fortified nutritional yeast. This is Mother Nature's B vitamin. It's like it has all these activated B vitamins, not the synthetic B vitamins you find in many supplements, which I think there's more research showing those might not be optimal, but you can throw nutritional yeast on top of a salad. You can mix it into a pasta sauce. You can basically sprinkle it on any dinner. So I know I'm getting my B vitamins through that avenue. I make my own ancient wheat bread.
Oh,
I
cool.
can't tolerate much gluten, like from like I should say traditionally prepared bread. But I make einkorn wheat. Einkorn is the oldest grain that we know of. I soak it, I sprout it, and I make my own. It's like manuka honey, sea salt, and like einkorn. That's dehydrated. It's not even cooked. And like I will put pesto on that. I use it as a base for a lot of things. And it's such a cool experience to actually be eating quote unquote bread. And it's like health enhancing. It makes me feel wonderful.
How
We're seeing
long
a
is
lot of
that?
people
How long is that process take?
3 days.
Okay.
And it gives me something to do. I think it's part of like, it keeps me conscious on my nutrition because, like this morning before the podcast, I got on and I rinsed the einkorn. It's about to start sprouting in about a day or so. And I almost always have a batch of that going. I've also gotten into sprouting. I think sprouts are just like nutrition powerhouse for all these micronutrients, and I've been making broccoli sprouts too. So I have einkorn wheat going, and I've been doing broccoli sprouts, which, you can look online. They're so healthy for you. They're full of these compounds called sulforaphane, and they protect your DNA. They're just so healthy. And so now that I know I have these, like, I'm interested in helping people figure out there's these little things you can throw on top of what you're actually doing. So imagine if you've got sprouts in the house and you throw that on top of whatever dinner meal you had. Maybe you sprinkle some hemp seeds on. Maybe you throw a couple nutritional yeast flakes on top of whatever your family's already having. Like, these little additives make a big, big difference. Because I think for a really high level of nutrition, it's not just about your macros. It's not just about your protein target. It's not just about how many carbohydrates you're eating. It's all this, like, these deeper, micronutrients that you can get in this way. I was a competitive bodybuilder for many years. So I ate more chicken breasts than I think I'll ever need to eat for the rest of my life.
Mhm.
So now I'm trying to do more plant-based protein sources just to, like, learn and play with those. And one thing that I really do like, it's not the tastiest, but I think it's phenomenally healthy, is tempeh, which is
Mm.
fermented soy. I do not feel good when I eat regular soy, even if it's organic. I can't tell you why. I just feel a little bloated. But when I have fermented soy in the form of tempeh, dang, do I feel good. It's rich in protein. You can marinate it and make it taste like basically anything. I cook it with avocado oil on a stovetop. And there's a lot of people talking about this longevity supplement, spermidine. It's found in sperm, and it helps with a lot of different pathways associated with longevity. Well, fermented soy, tempeh, is one of the highest sources of spermidine. In fact, if you ate one serving of that for dinner, you have as much spermidine as you might get in a serving of a supplement. So
Mm.
there's something to that. And the soy plant itself is called, its actual, like, plant name is glycine max, and glycine is an amino acid that's very rich in soy, and it's
Mm.
also one that benefits us a lot from, like, a brain health and cognitive standpoint and nervous system standpoint. So I think there's benefit in getting that in. And then when I do have, animal products, I'm getting the highest quality sources: grass fed, grass finished, wild caught. I think in today's day and age, you just need to, like, pay attention to that when you eat higher up on the food chain, because there's a lot of toxicants and BS in the food that's not great.
Wow, a lot to take in there.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. I like to ask this question to most of the people that come on the podcast. What's like one thing you've changed your mind about in the past 10 years?
It's a great question. I'll say this. I think that we need to have a balance for longevity between anabolism and catabolism.
Mm.
We need to activate the pathways that build us up, things that stimulate insulin, things that dump amino acids, and we need things that actually allow our bodies to break down. And that could be the converse between, like, eating and feeding after big training sessions. So you lift weights, you stimulate mTOR, your body's like, give me carbohydrates, give me amino acids to heal, grow, and repair, and you feed that pathway. And that's a very important pulse for the body. For longevity, you want muscle mass, you want anabolic signaling. You just need to have that a part of your life. But that needs to be cyclically balanced with catabolism, where you actually activate the exact opposite pathways: AMP kinase, emptying things out, low fasting insulin, high growth hormone through deep fasting. So I used to believe that, the goal was just to build and throw and feed calories and anabolism. But we also know that the bodybuilders that are taking all the anabolic steroids and the drugs and are basically not activating these catabolic pathways through fasting and lack of nutrition and calories, they're dying early of heart disease, they're getting cancers, and the body cleans itself and heals itself through catabolism, through autophagy, through deep fasting. And so that is a thing. I would say, I would even go as far as to say, like, look, doing time restricted daily eating, fasting for 16 hours a day, I think is beneficial. But this real machinery gets activated on deeper fasts. So we teach our program members doing a 24-hour fast once a week. That could be dinner to dinner, breakfast to breakfast. That's a place to start, but you could certainly do more. I think, like, the benefits of doing, like, a 3-day fast, once you work up to that, they get more profound for sure. You get into a deeper fasted state, and maybe even doing that once a month would be optimal, like a chance to give this really powerful cleansing signaling. So yeah, I guess I'd say, like, really the emphasis of the importance of fasting. I would say the other thing is not appreciating the significance of light as a signal for the hormonal cascade that triggers all these body clock systems. So we talked a little bit about blue light, but also now the importance of morning sunshine. getting that sunshine in your eyes to set all of our clock genes and get the right neurochemical cascade. Because if you can create the neurochemistry that makes you feel good and motivated on a daily basis, like your likelihood of sticking to health routines is massive. And I'm going to tell you, your neurochemistry is so deeply tied to light in your skin, light in your eyes. So I'm appreciating how important of a signal that is for the body.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. When I first got into the health game, not right initially, but I was big into fasting. I wrote a journal, and I do think it's a tool for sure. And I think, like you said, I think it's important to get that balance of building up and then breaking down the anabolic versus catabolic. And also, too, I think one way of recovering and getting into that catabolic state is sleeping well, like
Yes.
quality sleep. I think that's something maybe as I've gotten older, I've really put an emphasis on, like just going to bed consistently at the same time, I think is like a big one. I find the days that or the nights that I'm up later, which doesn't happen that often, even if I get a decent night's sleep, it's not the same, so
Yeah,
I think that is like
I agree
something,
with you.
yeah, I've become more conscious of as I've gotten older, is that recovery.
I have another tidbit that came to my mind.
Yeah.
I've changed my mind a little bit on creatine. I think creatine is a wonderful supplement that everyone should consider taking.
Yeah.
It's something I used to think was just an athletic performance supplement for muscle building, for the ability to lift more weights or have higher power output. But now I'm appreciating that creatine is basically, it's a driver of ATP, of cellular energy. And ultimately, when we're eating food at a high level upstream process, we're feeding the body so that we can ultimately produce ATP. And there's many ways to like give more direct cellular energy, and creatine is one of those.
Mm.
They give creatine to seniors, 75 plus, who don't strength train. They maintain more muscle mass. Creatine is involved in the pathways that leads to most neurotransmitter production. It's involved with pathways that helps myelinate your neurons. It's involved with pathways that produce acetylcholine, so it's really huge for cognitive health. And I just think like they're also showing that people who have brain fog after a night of poor sleep, we talked a lot about that. If they take creatine 3 to 5 grams, they can actually mitigate some of that brain fog and cognitive decline, which might show that like the brain just doesn't have enough energy in those kind of scenarios. So I think it's a powerful tool, and I don't see many people who wouldn't have benefit from taking 3 to 5 grams of creatine per day as a part of their routine. Another thing I've changed my mind on a little bit is vitamin D. And I guess I think it's another thing that's, depending on where you live, important to supplement. But I also now I'm looking at trying to get more vitamin D from actual sun exposure. Not to say you shouldn't supplement. In fact, like you live in Chicago, wintertime, it's not like you're going to get vitamin D from the sun during that time. But I think it just shows if you can get out in the midday and get some of that sun on your skin, like that is a really powerful form of that sulfated vitamin D, feeding that natural pathway at a high up level. And the cool thing about the sun is we know when we have too much, and it depends on the amount of melanin we have. When you start to feel that aversion, like this too much sun, like it's time for you to get out of the sun. But I do want people to understand that the light that produces vitamin D is that midday UVB light, the stuff that we're trying to avoid all the time. It's not the morning sunshine that's good for the infrared light. It's good for, this light in our eyes that signals the past cascade, but that midday UVB is what produces that. So you want to talk about a great way to be productive? Midday sun breaks. Like if you can get outside and take a quick walk and even just, look at the sun, get some sun on your skin, that's great, season permitting.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, daily walks, I'm a big fan of. If you could do it, specifically after a meal would be great.
Yes.
I coach golf here, and our golf season's a short season for the high school, and so I'm eating my meals a little bit later than I'd like to, and I'll just and then it gets dark because we're in the fall now, so it gets dark earlier. I've been going on like the treadmill after and just walking slowly,
Nice.
like for 15 minutes, even just like little things like that. I think they add up over time.
Yeah, and that's just to speak into that. Like, what a like is, I don't always love the term health hacks, but I think that one totally like fits that category. That is a health hack that if you walk after a big meal, your digestion improves, your blood sugar and glycemic response improves, and you just don't feel like that heavy, tired, lethargic feeling you sometimes feel after a meal. So I think it's a wonderful habit and practice. And incorporate your family, right? We're talking about fit fathers and fit mothers. Like, get your family to be a part of that. Take your dogs out, take a little family stroll. That could be a wonderful thing to do.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I know you talk a lot about visceral fat. I think losing visceral fat, especially middle-aged males, it's something this is where we pack it on for the most part.
Yeah.
I know there's obviously there's not a magic pill for this, and it's implementing a lot of good habits over time. But are there some certain key things that you think people could implement to help maybe mitigate visceral fat as they age?
Yeah, I think there is some good evidence that high intensity exercise is a really good tool to help target that. I think you get this, like, for fat to be burned, it's a multi-stage process of having the fat being released from those fat cells, meaning there's an energy demand that's causing those lipolytic hormones to be like, okay, we need to release these stored fats into circulation to be burned. So the calorie deficit is important, and also anything that increases energy demand. You also need to get blood flow into that area. Like, blood flow needs to get into those areas. And some of this stubborn fat actually just is not as, it does not have as much circulation per se, but anything getting deep blood flow into the viscera is going to help get those fats liberated. So I guess off the top of my head, it would be like the great nutrition that's calorie balanced. I think fasting can be a helpful signal for creating, more of that calorie deficit, high intensity exercise. And I would say that first off, you have like strength training, which is like creating muscular tension. I think that's important. And that can be high intensity if you do like strength circuits, like we recommend inside of our programs, but also doing like HIIT, like intervals on whatever kind of cardio you like to do is fantastic. I think sauna after exercise is very, very helpful for many, many reasons. If you have the ability to get some more heat, even infrared saunas, those actually penetrate even deeper. That can help accelerate that visceral fat loss, probably through the mediating through like the enhanced circulation. I think cold plunging probably helps too. Increases more of like the genetic expression of the things that lead to more brown fat, that mitochondrial rich fat that can help you burn more fat at rest. And again, anything I think that's getting circulation coming in out from the viscera and out back to the periphery is probably really helpful. But ultimately, your body's going to pull from visceral fat stores as you get more lean. So you could even say, good, you need to lose some weight, measure your waist circumference, maybe get some kind of tool that can measure body fat, and then work on losing weight. Work on losing weight and building muscle. And those two combination of processes is going to help. And the latter, muscle building, I'd say is even just as important, because if you can build and maintain high amount of muscle and you have a higher metabolic engine at rest, and then you eat calorie balance over a long period of time, inevitably your body's going to be pulling from those deeper visceral fat stores.
Yeah, no, those are all great tips. And yeah, I mean, building muscle is like, I think should be the forefront for not only aging men, but anyone in general, just for general health, bone health, and also, sort of fighting that visceral fat that tends to build up as we get older. Well, this was great. Anthony, where's the best place for people to find you? I know you're all over the place. So
yeah. So, I mean, our websites, you can find us at fitfather.com or fitmother.com. And if you're watching this on YouTube, we have our Fit Father Project YouTube channel that has hundreds of videos on a wide range of topics: workouts, nutrition, supplementation, mindset, member success stories for inspiration. So you can check out the Fit Father Project YouTube channel or Fit Mother Project YouTube channel. And if you want to actually see like our methodology, taking what we've have as like wide concepts now and actually see what's a plan, then you can go to our websites, fitfather.com or fitmother.com. And we have like a free 1-week plan we'll email to you. It gives you nutrition. It gives you a 24-minute workout that's like strength circuit training. And we'll basically give you our philosophy and show you how it works so you can implement it, see if you like it. And if you do like it, we have our full programs and communities that we would love to have you be a part of.
Love it. Well, I have to say this episode was packed with tons of great tips. So yeah, I appreciate you coming on and sharing all this knowledge, Anthony.
Thanks, Brian. My pleasure.
Thanks for listening to the Get Lean, Eat Clean podcast. I understand there are millions of other podcasts out there, and you've chosen to listen to mine, and I appreciate that. Check out the show notes at briangryn.com for everything that was mentioned in this episode. Feel free to subscribe to the podcast and share it with a friend or family member that's looking to get their body back to what it once was. Thanks again, and have a great day.